Good morning. Today we will be having our discussion about conceptual framework and review of related literature. For this lesson, we're talking about research framework. As we begin writing a research project, we need to know that we must consider the framework that is suitable for your study. So what is research framework? A research framework illustrates the structure or blueprint of research plan and helps the researcher formulate relevant research questions. The framework consists of the key concepts and assumed relationships of the research project. It is normally used as a guide for researchers so that they can more focus on the scope of their studies. It can be presented using visual, diagrams, charts, etc., and narrative form, a paragraph stating the concepts and relationships of the study. So, there are two types of research frameworks are classified, the theoretical and conceptual frameworks. So, what is theoretical framework? It is commonly used for studies that anchor on time-tested theories that related the findings of investigation to underpinning relevant theory of knowledge. At the same time, a conceptual framework refers to the actual ideas, beliefs, and tentative theories that specifically support the study. It is primarily a conception or model of what is out there that the researcher plans to study. The similarities of theoretical and conceptual framework. And this is a summary of the differences of theoretical and conceptual framework. Concept map is a visual representation of information that helps show the relationship between ideas. Concept maps begin with the main topic and then branch out into subtopics, reflecting the connection of all the elements in the study. It can also provide and organize new ideas. Concept maps are very useful for researchers and readers who understand better visually, with the proper connection of lines and linking arrows to shapes and other symbols representing your concepts about the research. The readers can visualize a comprehensive picture of your study. However, in the concept map, you are not yet actually researching your study. It is developing or creating your plan or blueprint so that you will be guided on the flow and direction of your research study. And that includes your research questions, variables, and methodology. It means that you are just gathering and soliciting ideas on what you could learn about your chosen topic. First, we go to types of research frameworks, which is the conceptual framework. And before creating your conceptual framework, you have to understand first the different variables of your study. Although these were already discussed in the previous module, which are the independent variable, dependent variable, moderating variable, mediating or intervening variable, and control variable. Independent variable is the presumed cause of the research problem. It is the reason of any change or difference in a dependent variable. It can be purposely manipulated by the researcher, depending on the focus of study. It maybe can cause, influence, or affect the results or outcome of the study. It is also called as the experimental, treatment, antecedent, or predictor variable. Moreover, it refers to the variable that is stable and affected by the other variables you are trying to measure. Dependent variable is the presumed effect of the research problem. It is usually the problem itself or the elements that is being questioned. This variable is altered as a result of experimental manipulation of the independent variable or variables. It also called as the criterion, effect, response, or outcome variable, which captures the interest of the researcher and requires analysis, interpretation, and implication of the findings of the study. The variable that depends on other factors that are measured and are affected or influenced by the independent variable. Moderating variable is an independent variable which influences the direction and the strength of the connection between independent and independent variables. The independent variable interacts with the moderator variable, which makes the relationship of the independent and independent variable stronger or weaker. It alters the effect that an independent variable has on a dependent variable based on its value. The moderator thus influences the effective components of the cause-effect relationship between the two variables. This is called as the interaction effect. Mediating variable or intervening variable is an element that exists between independent to the dependent variable. A mediator or mediating variable is an integral part of the cause-effect relationship and help us to understand the effects of the independent variable on the dependent variable. It is a variable that describes the effect and influence of the relationship between the variables and what is controlling that relationship. This is also called as correlated or mediator variables. The last variable of conceptual framework is the control variable. It's a special type of independent variable that can influence the dependent variable. It takes an active role in quantitative studies. Statistical procedures are used to control this variable. It is useful to integrate the control variables into your research study, but it is not the main focus. The input process output model is a conceptual paradigm which indicates the inputs, required process, and the output. This approach is centered on premise of acquiring essential information by converting inputs into outputs through the required processing steps in obtaining the result. The IPO model is also referred to as a functional model that is usually used in action research where an intervention or solution is necessary to solve the identified problem. The input is usually the independent variable of the study. Meanwhile, the process is the intervention or solution consists of the instruments and analysis used to acquire the result. Lastly, the output is the findings or outcome of the interventions being made to solve the identified problem. Common example of conceptual framework. As you can read on different research studies, the common conceptual framework used of most studies are the independent and dependent variable model and the input, process, and output model. This conceptual framework shows the independent and dependent variables of the study. It is presumed that more number of hours a student prepares for the exam, the higher would be the expected academic performance. This conceptual framework shows the input, process, and output approach of the study. The input is the independent variable, which includes the socio-demographic and food safety profile of the respondents. The process includes the tools and analysis in gathering the data, while the output is the outcome based on the results of the study.
Good morning, everyone. Now we are talking about the definition of terms. What is definition of terms? Now, the definition of terms is also called as operational definition of variables. Now, what is operational definition of variables? The word operational refers to how the word term was used in the study. At the same time, the variables are the elements essential to the study. Now, they are the two ways in defining the terms, the conceptual and operational definition. Now, what is conceptual definition? Conceptual definition is the meaning of the term that is based on how is defined in the dictionary encyclopedia. Example is something having to do with the mind or with mental concept or philosophical or imaginary ideas. Next, the operational definition. Operational definition, on the other hand, is the meaning of the term on how it was used in the study. Benefits of having definition of terms. Number 1, it is a useful place to include technical terms in the topic of the research questions. Number 2, it can clarify the definition of term, especially if it has a different meaning. Define the term according to how it was used in the study. Number 3, it makes it easier to revisit or check the meaning of a term instead of trying to locate up through the paper. Number 4, helps to ensure that the reader can understand the technical terminologies and jargons while reading the paper. Next, the guidelines on how to write the definition of terms.
When you are finished identifying your statement of the problem or research questions or objectives, you may now start formulating the hypothesis of your study. So, what is hypothesis? Tentative statement about the relationship between two or more variables. It is a specific and testable prediction on what you expect to happen with the variables in your study. Hypothesis states a tentative answer to your research question that can be tested by further investigation, in which you can support or refute it through scientific research methods such as data collection and statistical analysis.
Hypothesis. First is simple hypothesis. A simple hypothesis is a prediction of the relationship between two variables, the independent variables and the dependent variable. It shows a connection between one independent variables and a single independent variables.
Example, the higher the poverty rate in society, the higher the number would be the out-of-school youth.
Second, complex hypothesis. A complex hypothesis reflects the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. It expresses a connection between two or more independent variables and two or more dependent variables.
Eating more vegetables and fresh fruits leads to boost immune system and enhance blood circulation and digestions.
Fourth, logical hypothesis. Logical hypothesis expresses explanation with limited evidence that can be verified logically. It reflects a relationship of the variables which can infer based on logical phenomena. Sometimes a logical hypothesis can be turned into an empirical hypothesis.
Example: tomato plants bear fruits faster in earth than in moon. The soil and plant growth in moon's ground. The evidence for this claim will be eliminated and the hypothesis will only remain local.
Fifth, statistical hypothesis. A statistical hypothesis is an analysis of a portion of population. It can be verified statistically.
If your research is about the psychosocial development of K-3 pupils of private and public schools in a city, you would want to examine every single K-3 pupil in the city. Therefore, you would conduct your research using a statistical hypothesis.
Null hypothesis. The null hypothesis denoted with the symbol also. It exists except when you consider that there is no relationship between the independent and dependent variables, or that there is an insufficient of information to claim a scientific hypothesis.
There is no significant change in my health whether I exercise every day or not.
Alternative hypothesis. An alternative hypothesis is denoted with the symbol H2. It is an alternate statement expressed to be tested in order to generate the desired output when the empirical or working hypothesis is not accepted.
My health improves during the time when I sleep 8 hours a day than sleeping 4 hours only.
Aside from the 7 types of hypothesis, a hypothesis can also be classified as directional and non-directional.
Review of related literature. After we have selected the research topic, we have to spend more time for your review of related literature. As a researcher, you are promoting knowledge. The knowledge created by other previous studies is essential because it can be a baseline or reference for your research study as the related literature. Review or related literature is a compilation of studies related to a specific area of research. It evaluates classifies and summarizes all the relevant previous studies conducted on a specified topic. It is also designed to justify your research by exposing the gaps of the previous studies. It is vital that your literature review is centralized. Thus, you should choose studies that are focused to your topic rather than collecting a broader scope of studies which are already not relevant to your research. These are the 3 ways of using literature review in the discussion of your study. A. Providing context as a foundation to develop your ideas. B. Comparing your findings from other previous related studies. C. Stating what contribution your study has made in the field. However, there are also 3 common errors that are usually made when including literature reviews in the discussion of study. First, there are a wide range of studies being included in which most of them are not anymore relevant to your specific topic under investigation. Second, related article mentioning the original article is cited rather than citing the original article itself. Lastly, previous work has been cited by the researcher based only on the abstracts and without even reading the entire research.
Purpose of literature review. Number 1. To discover the connection of the research to the existing body of knowledge and to real-life situations. Number 2. To identify more theories or concepts as the fundamental of your research study and to learn from them. Number 3. To determine the relationship of your research with previous research studies to prevent duplication and to acknowledge others' research. 4. To acquire knowledge on the accuracy and significance of your research question. Number 5. To acquaint yourself with the technical terminologies relevant to your study. Number 6. To determine possible gaps, conflicts, and open questions left from other research, which might help you in formulating and justifying to research idea. Number 7. To clarify misconceptions on previous research and help repose, police, and contribute to the development of the body of knowledge. Structure of literature review. Number 1. Introduction. The introduction somehow presents the fundamental idea of the particular study of the literature review. Number 2. The main body. The main body consists of the organized discussion of source. This is where you summarize and synthesize your literature review and reflect how they related to your study. Number 3. Conclusion or recommendation. Conclusion and recommendation emphasize what you have learned from reviewing the literature and where your study leads to.
Types of literature review. These are the different types of literature review according to Newman 2011. Following the type of literature review depends on how you organize and present your review of related studies. The first one is context review. From the name itself, context review is primarily focused on the content or contextual aspect of research. Usually, it is a type of review in which the researcher relates his or her study to a larger body of knowledge. It represents the current research by merging it into a wider framework and determine its contribution and impact to the specific field of study. Second, the historical review is a specialized type of literature review in which the researcher organizes the related researches according to the period of time it was conducted. Historical literature review focuses on rubbing research in a specified field throughout a chronological order, which usually starts from the oldest period of time going to the most recent studies. The goal of this type of research is to gain knowledge on the advancement of technology and to identify developments on certain areas which progress through time. It can be integrated with a theoretical or methodological review to illustrate how a concept, theory, or research method developed through time. Third, the integrative review. Integrative review is a common type of literature review in which the researcher introduces and summarizes the recent knowledge of the study. It emphasizes the agreements and disagreements of knowledge among various previous researches. It also considers, reviews, critiques, and synthesizes representative literature in an integrated way in order to generate new structures and viewpoint on the topic. This is the most common form of literature review in the social sciences. This review is usually merged with a context review. Fourth, the methodological review. Methodological review is a specialized type of literature review in which the researcher gathers, compares, and contrasts other studies to the current research. It basically summarizes and evaluates the strengths and gaps in methodological aspects of various studies and illustrates the effects of different methodologies, like research designs, samples, process to different outcomes. This approach also emphasizes ethical issues when necessary, which you should consider and be conscious of as you go through your current research. Fifth, the self-study review. Self-study review is a literature review in which the researcher demonstrates his or her understanding of a specific body of knowledge. It contains existing proof associated to a clearly stated research questions and uses standardized methods to determine and evaluate relevant research. However, it can also produce problems of prejudice, especially when it is used to summarize claims or statements linking his or her findings to a system of knowledge. Typically, it is a practice in the educational program or course requirements. Last, the theoretical review. The theoretical review is a literature review in which the researcher introduces several theories or concepts that are focused on a specific topic. It is a particular on the theories and concepts being highlighted on other researches and compares them to a current study basing its framework, hypothesis, consistency, and justification. The theoretical literature review aids in establishing the theories already existed, the relationship of theories among various studies, the degree of its investigation, and the development of new hypotheses. Type of sources of literature review. In doing a literature review, researchers must be acquainted with three basic types of sources, which are the general references, primary and secondary sources. General references are sources in which a researcher refers to track down other sources, and primary sources are publications in which a researcher's accounts to findings of his or her investigation. Most primary sources are found in journal articles, while the secondary sources are publications in which a researcher considers the work of others. Where can you find the review of related literature? As a researcher, You can find information about research studies in numerous formats such as books, scholarly journal articles, dissertations, government documents, policy reports, and periodicals. Steps in writing literature review.